So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. Each session is truly set up and geared to providing you relevant information and tools, topics, everything that you need to be successful. Uh, Adjusting to this new norm is not easy and it's changing daily. And so, to support you in that shift to a new reality of working and learning and living, Tri-C wants you to know that we're committed to you and serving you in this time during a rapid change by providing actionable resources to help you, to help your team, not only succeed, but really thrive during this time, wherever they're located, if they're still working at the work site or if they're working remotely. Our webinar series is just one of Corporate College's many new resources to prepare the workforce for overcoming challenges and achieving both personal as well as business goals. The series is comprised of four primary themes, with today's session focusing on working remotely. We have other themes focused on virtual leadership, navigating a transition, and personal health and well-being. And as many of you know, Corporate College is truly fortunate to have a very distinguished and talented team of facilitators and subject matter experts. Today, I am so excited to introduce our presenters and subject matter experts, Maya Walsh and Nancy Coleman. Both Maya and Nancy are employer relations specialists here in our Tri-C Career Center, and both women have a wealth of knowledge matching seekers with employers. Maya Walsh brings experience from more than 15 years with both Robert Half International Account Temps Division and the Movado Group. Now at Tri-C, Maya develops strategic relationships to facilitate co-ops and internship opportunities, career fairs, and networking opportunities. Essentially, she's great at bringing employers and students together. Equally impressive, Nancy's 25 years of experience with the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center and at the Department of Employment Services has really lent herself to serve countless employers and employment seekers throughout development programs for career exploration, experiential learning, and employment events on campus. We appreciate both Maya and Nancy sharing their time today and all their specialized expertise with us. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Maya Walsh and Nancy Coleman. Welcome, ladies. Can I ask you a real quick question? First, I wanted just to see if you could tell us a little bit about the employment seekers that you see on an annual basis.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Maya Walsh, and we see students, we see community members, we see alumni that come to us and ask us for job assistance in our career center.
That's wonderful. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts of what you do. Not only do you support just thousands of students every year, but that you reach even out further into the community as well. So really tremendous work that you ladies do. Thank you again for being here. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about what is going on out in the job market and how can you support our listeners.
Hey, great, thank you. And I'm sorry, it looks like I forgot to advance these slides when you were giving that wonderful synopsis in the beginning, so I apologize for that, but we will move right into the presentation. So today our presentation is all about looking for a job. So what Nancy and I have done is we've broken this down into seven different areas, as you can see on the screen right now: getting started, research, networking, job search, the application, interviewing, and then the current climate. And what we really want to do with this is to give you an understanding of some of the things that we see on a daily basis and give you some tips to succeed in searching for your next job. So, question for everyone: what is everyone, and go ahead and use the chat box for this. We're trying to get a pulse on what everyone is looking for in this presentation. What are you looking to gain knowledge on? And share with us that in the chat box, please. Okay, I don't see anything as of yet, but please continue to think about what it is. Oh, different vehicles to begin search. Advanced search tip. Re-entering the workforce after retirement. New process for job searching that relates to remotely. Great. Okay, so we'll be addressing some of these for sure. And anything that we don't address today, we will be getting a copy of this chat so that we can individually get back to you with the questions that you may have. All right. Okay, Nancy.
Hey, thank you, Maya. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you could share this dreary, rainy Friday afternoon with us as we talk about something that is important to many people right now, which is looking for a job. So one question I have also, which just go ahead and enter it in the chat box so that we have some idea what our audience is looking for is where you are right now. Are you looking for a job? Are you possibly looking for a job soon? Are you just curious? Just kind of for us to gauge where you're at in your job search. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is what you need to do before you even dive into that job search. Anybody who's looked for a job knows that looking for a job is a job, and it's an unpredictable job. Job searches can take forever, they can happen very quickly. So the most important thing is that before you even get started, make sure that all of your tools are in your toolbox. So we put up some things that are very important. The first is make sure that you have a job search email and phone number. Make sure there's a way that employers can contact you and only you. So not a message or a phone line that multiple people answer. It seems pretty common sense that you need a professional job search email, but I was recently helping a friend who had a job search email that was ilovethedead@yahoo.com. And my first thing to her was, you need to change that right away. And then my second thought was, I really don't know you as well as I thought I did. But the truth was, she loved the Grateful Dead. I took it a different way. So all that to say, you just want it to be something very simple like your name. Gmail is really the professional standard, and it's free to get a Gmail account. So make sure you set up an email and a phone number that can focus only on your job search. That way, if you're getting emails, it's not getting mixed in with other types of information. The other thing that's very important is your social networking accounts, especially right now when all of us have been plunged into the virtual world and the chance of having like face-to-face contact isn't very likely. A lot of what we're doing is going to happen in the virtual world. So social networking accounts are really important for two reasons. The first one is, of course, you need to clean up your social networking accounts before you start job searching. So Google yourself, have somebody else check your social media to see what's there. Be very careful about what you post because you never know what may be offensive to somebody as far as your political views or what you're doing on the weekend, who you're doing it with. So make sure that your networks are clean because you can count on the fact that an employer is going to try to find out information about you. On the other side, social networking accounts can be very helpful in a job search. So I think everyone is probably aware of LinkedIn. That is the standard when it comes to job search networking. So you want to make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile, that it's complete, that you're active on it, that you share things, that you like things, that you are really participating in it. Facebook and Twitter can also be very helpful for your job search. So social networking accounts can help you with researching companies. They can help you, of course, with networking, which is very important. They can provide job opportunities, job openings, and also they help you do your detective work. So if you have an interview, you're going to want to search out the person that you're interviewing with. So these are the reasons why you want to be sure to use social networking at these times. If you need any help with your LinkedIn profile. I'll get to that in a couple minutes, but the Career Center can definitely help you with that. And the one final thing about social networking, be sure to follow on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, any companies that you're interested in working for, because very often they will post or tweet something about job opportunities before it hits other type of sources. And then the last couple things that are important, make sure that you have an interviewing outfit in your closet before you even start your job search. Even though chances are that you might not have an in-person interview right now, at least from the waist up, you want something professional looking. And it's really stressful if you have an interview and you're trying to find something, of course, you can never find it. So make sure that's one of the tools that you already have in your job searching toolbox. Reference list, at least have an idea of who you would ask to be a personal reference. Keep in good contact with people that you used to work with, people that you currently work with, and have at least somebody, 3 people that are not related to you that you could call upon to serve as your reference. Then the last tool, which of course is the most important tool, is your resume. I couldn't tell you strongly enough that I would not start a job search without an updated resume, because that's one of the first things that are going to be asked of you. The resume is very important, so make sure that it's updated, that it's professional, that it's something that can sell you for your position, because that's going to be the first thing that most people see. And so on the next slide, just some information for you. The Career Center can help you with your resume. Our career coaches are currently all still hard at work virtually and conducting a number of workshops. The Resume That Gets Results workshop is offered at the times upcoming that you can see on the screen. And I will tell you that the career coaches that conduct these are our colleagues and our friends in the Career Center, and they are all certified resume writers. They do an amazing job. And if you don't have a resume yet, or even if you do, I really encourage you to work with them. This is a service provided to you by the Career Center. And usually it starts with attending one of these online workshops. All the workshops are online right now. And then after that, you'd submit a draft and one of our specialists would work one-on-one with you. So as a follow-up to this session, we will send you out the link to register for any of those workshops. But before you start your job search, I encourage you to get the best resume you can together, and please use the Career Center to help you to do that.
Thank you, Nancy. One thing that I just wanted to piggyback on what Nancy was saying about interviewing, and I'll be discussing interviewing later in the presentation, but how she spoke about the attire. It's very important to have a professional attire. So what we find though is that obviously some of these options are not necessarily affordable or accessible for all people. So there are several different places that you can go to procure some type of professional dress. So Dress for Success is one of them. We also have something called Hope's Closet, which is sponsored by our Women in Transition, which are professional clothing that are donated not only by faculty, staff, and employees of the college, but anybody else in the community that has professional attire that they would like to donate somewhere. So that's something, and that's free as well. So there's a lot of different resources where you can get either inexpensive attire or completely free. So just keep that in mind as well, because I know that that does sometimes come up. So I would like to discuss the next step, which would be research. Research is very, very important to potentially looking for obviously any job or anything that you're going to do. It's a vital part of your job search. So conducting company research, basically going on the websites, going on the LinkedIn profiles of different companies. You want to look for companies that share the same types of values that you have, the same types of missions that you think about. You want to see that they have clear goals. You want to work for a company that has something that you're interested in, maybe potentially passionate about it. So you really want to conduct that research and not go into any interview or go into any company blindsided as to not knowing what the company does, what the company's mission is, what their goals are. You really want to have a good understanding, because although there are quite a few people that are unemployed and some people are just thinking, I'll just take anything that I can get, that necessarily may not be the best. That's not necessarily the best choice to make, because at the end of the day, you want to be happy with where you are and you want to believe in what the company does. Making time. So time is precious, right? Time is precious to all of us, and time is limited. And with everything that we're juggling nowadays, it's very, very hard to make time. But what we think is, in order to do your research properly, it's probably going to be virtually impossible to spend hours upon hours upon hours in one room researching a company without getting interrupted. We're all working at home. We all have other priorities. We all have other competing things that are going on in our lives. So if you don't have time to set aside several hours, if you can do it maybe in chunks, so maybe 20 to 30-minute time blocks. And again, that's all about time management, blocking your time and making time to do what's important. And obviously, looking for a job is important. Making time to do the research is important. Learning about the business operations. So how does the company make money? What do they do? Who are their competitors? Has the company grown? Is the company stagnant? Learning really about anything and everything that you can research and learn about a company is only going to be in your best interest, because if you are granted an interview, these will be things that they expect that you know. Employee benefits, that's always a fun one. You may not always find the information on this, but some company websites, or just by doing, again, your research online, you can find out what some of the company benefits are. So if there's things that are important to you, like flex time, working remotely, benefits like the healthcare benefits, these are types of things that you want to look for in the company. Again, while you're doing your research, because it then ties into everything that I said earlier. If this is somewhere you would like to work, then you want to make sure you're researching all aspects and the company. Research, scan the news. Well, we all know that the news media outlet, it just loves bringing to the table information on employers. Sometimes good information, other times bad information. So it's in your best interest to know what's going on. What's the reputation of the company? What do people think? What do people, maybe even in your own network, think of the company? Cleveland is a very, very, very small world here, and therefore we have a lot of individuals that have that, 6 degrees of separation. Everybody seems to know somebody. So by doing your research, by asking questions, a lot of times you can find out different things about the company. Also, local Chamber of Commerces would have that information. The Better Business Bureau would have that information. So all encompassing your research of the company.
Excuse me, Maya.
Yes.
Hi. Real quickly, before you move on to the next slide, a couple people had asked questions that I think would be really relevant to what you were talking about right now. So we have a couple people asking for, when you're doing the research and everything, so this is a research on the companies, but maybe a step before that, as they're really looking for the different opportunities out there. Are there any different vehicles to begin to do that type of research, or maybe even after you've identified some companies? And are there any other types of advanced search tips that you could provide?
Absolutely. So when we were putting this PowerPoint presentation together, I wanted to group things together that I thought might go together. So that's actually a part of my presentation going forward, but I'll be more than happy to speak about it right now. So some of the vehicles that Nancy had mentioned LinkedIn earlier. LinkedIn is a very, very, very valuable tool. I mean, you can find out so much information on LinkedIn about a company. You can also find out a lot of information on a website called Glassdoor. Glassdoor provides current reviews from not current reviews, but reviews from current and or past employees. It also Glassdoor also has salary comparisons on it. So that's another website I would definitely recommend researching. Facebook, like Nancy mentioned earlier, some employers have Facebook pages. There's a wealth of knowledge when you start to look at all of these different resources. Another job search site would obviously be Indeed.com. One of the things that you can do with an Indeed, one of the things that you can do with a LinkedIn is you can filter. So you can look for positions based on your interests. So you could filter, I want to work for a company 50 miles from whatever your home location is. You could say, I only want to work for a company 5 to 10 miles. I want to work for a large company, a small company, and then it will give you the parameters of what those mean. I am an IT professional, so I want to work in an IT-based company. I don't want to work for a company that has an IT department, but I want to work for a company that is an IT-driven type company. So there's all sorts of filters that you can add to the different searches when you're looking for them. And they're very, very simple to use. And there's always the help feature in the search engines. So that's always something that can be used as well. Have her repeat. The last, I think it was it Glassdoor? Glass, like Glassdoor.
Yes.
Is that the one that you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Does that answer everyone's question at a high level?
I think so. We'll keep an eye out for any other messages that come through.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. One of the things that, so from when the folks answered the question about what they're looking for, a lot of people said the same thing, that they're either looking for a job right now, or they're fearful they might be laid off, or someone they know has been referenced. So one thing that the pandemic has done is it has given us the idea that we need to be prepared at all times. A lot of us 3 months ago had no intention of looking for a new job. And here we find ourselves standing at the edge of the pool about to be pushed in. And that can happen anytime. Sure, this pandemic in one sweep has done it to a lot of people, but there really are a lot of uncertainties in the world. So it's a good reminder that keep your network strong and keep networking all the time, because you never know what will happen next, good or bad, when an opportunity will come your way. So I think most people know that the majority of jobs are found through networking. You can hear statistics 70%, 85%, but the reality is that if you are going to find a job right now, that's probably how it's going to be done. And we talk a lot about the hidden job market. So the hidden job market is the job market that is hiding from you. And it is two different things. It's one part of that are positions that are never posted. So they're positions that are handed off and filled and never really reach a point where the general public has access to them. The other part of the hidden job market are those jobs that they do get posted. They do go through the interview process, but really the candidate was identified long before the posting was ever done. So they go through the formality, but did you really have a chance at that job? Probably not. So networking is the way that you are going to uncover that hidden job market, or have these jobs be available to you. And the most important thing is your own personal contacts. When I was at the Department of Employment Services years ago and we were helping public assistance recipients find work, our message to them was tell every single person that you know that you're looking for a job. And I think it still holds true today. Do you know where every person in your family works, what they do? We really maybe don't know that. So we don't know who can help us, and they don't know that we need their help. So you want to rely first on your personal contacts and let them know that you are looking for a job. I might be looking for a job. We've gotten some bad news at our organization. Layoffs are coming. Please keep me in mind if you hear of anything. And one good thing about a time like this, where we're in a situation where we all feel so helpless, that we look for a chance to help other people. So I think that you will find people very receptive to helping you. My son lost his job. Do you know of anything? Use your personal contacts to their fullest to find these job opportunities that are out there. The other thing you want to do is start researching professional organizations. There is a professional organization for every profession out there. Join them, become a part of them. That's a way to really increase your network um, and find more people that can help you when you're looking for your job. The other thing is to take part in networking events. And everything found a way to live in our virtual world somehow. All of these networking events that we might have gone to, they still go on. They go on Zoom, they go on WebEx, they go on Skype, but they still go on. So be active and seek out different networking events and take part of them in them. In the virtual world, it becomes a little bit more difficult because we're all sitting at home watching a chat box, and it's not as easy as that personal contact when you bump into someone at an after hours event and strike up a conversation. But the things are still happening, and you just really need to find a way to engage in them. And then lastly, again, we go back to your social networks and social media. Depending on how comfortable you are with sharing, I've known people to put on Facebook, my son needs a job. This is what he's looking for. And the floods of people that will respond. And I've seen people get opportunities that way. So social media can be your friend. Again, you want to keep it professional. You have to judge for yourself how much you're comfortable with sharing, how much you want to put out there. But social media can definitely help you in this time when we're not running into our friends and families in the restaurants and at different types of outings. So the last thing I'll say about networking on the next slide is something else that you've probably all heard referenced before, which is the elevator pitch, which of course goes back to thinking that if you were in a building and you got into an elevator and you had only the time from which the elevator doors closed until they reopened again to sell yourself to somebody, what would you say? Can you, in 30 to 60 seconds, sell yourself to someone? And so this is just a very simple statement, but I would encourage you to start thinking about your elevator pitch. And it always just starts out with some basic things. Who are you? I am a this. Some of the strengths that you have, what makes you known, what makes you more valuable, and then where does your experience lie? You might not always spit those all out the first time you meet somebody, but it's good to have those available, because I'll tell you one thing that happens when you start networking and you say to somebody, I think I'm going to be laid off soon, and I really need to start looking for a job. The first question they're going to ask you is, what are you looking for? And a lot of us would say, I don't know, I just need a job. But you really need to start thinking of when someone asks you the question, what are you looking for? You can clearly identify who you are, what you're good at, and where you want to go, at least in general terms. Because if people can't answer those questions about you, they can't sell you to their friends and their network. So they need to be able to say, my friend Maya, she's really looking for a job. She's been in recruiting and placement for a number of years. A lot of her experience is in education. Do you know of anything? So make sure that you have somewhere down who you are, what you're good at, and what you want to do before you start your networking.
Thank you, Nancy. That's excellent. So now going into the job search preparation. So we've done our research piece. Now we've decided potentially, thought about some different types of employers we want to work with. And everybody's job search and reason for searching for a job is obviously different. Going through the chat, I've noticed have a job that might go away, might be laid off. Let's see here, looking for a job. There was one. My son is looking for a job after being downsized. I'm looking for tips for him. Right now, in this world of uncertainty, unemployment obviously is at an all-time high. So it is, it's This is one of the reasons why it's so, so important and vital to make sure that you've done all of your homework, because you really need to stand out from the other X amount of individuals that will also be applying for jobs. So one of the suggestions is creating a target list of employers. So what does that look like? Again, and a lot of things I'm saying are the same things repeated, because it's important that you hear the message, and it's important that these are the things that you do. So visit their page. So example, you want to work for the XYZ company. You go to xyz.com, it comes up, it gives you, usually there's tabs: home, about, careers, questions, locations. I mean, there's so many different tabs, and there's so much information that you can learn just by going to a company's website. Some of them have videos. Some of them have their current job openings. And then you can also choose to, if you go through LinkedIn and do it that way too, you can choose to follow that employer. So you'll always get notifications on your LinkedIn about what that employer is doing. It's just a way that you have to search and set up your LinkedIn profile to do that. Social media. Nancy already talked about social media. Social media is either the best or the worst. And one of the things that we always like to say is, definitely whatever you do before going to start applying for jobs and research and whatnot, be sure to check your social media profile. Some people put things on their social media or are tagged in certain areas that are pretty inappropriate. And you always look at it like this: if this is something that you wouldn't want your mother or your grandmother to see, take it down. Because employers do utilize social media. And being that Nancy and I work with employers on a daily basis, we have had employers tell us some horror stories of things they've found and therefore have not hired an individual. So that's definitely very important. And again, you can visit the social media page of that employer as well and find some additional information. There's a wealth of knowledge on the internet. That's basically, what we're trying to say here. So there's a wealth of information. Google's your best friend. You can find anything. Be in the know. We talked about this earlier: searching, scanning the news, scanning the websites. You want to know, see if there's any recent articles on that target list of employers that you're looking at potentially applying to. And then, like Nancy said earlier, networking. Connect to your network. It is imperative that you connect to your network, but make it valuable for them too. Don't just use somebody to ask questions that are not well thought out. So think about your questions that you want to talk to your network about. Have them well thought out and then prepared. So for example, how did you find your job at this company? How do you recommend that I find out more information about who's hiring? Who are the hiring managers? What type of advancement, if advancement's important to you, what type of advancement is at this organization? Have you ever advanced? Is this something that I would be in the same position for the rest of my life? Questions, just relevant questions to your job search, and make them meaningful questions. Okay, so now when you're going into your job search, how do you find a job that's right for you? Are you interested in doing the same job that you currently are doing at your employer now? Are you looking to completely switch fields? Are you looking to be a career changer? What are you looking for in a job? Or are you just looking because, at this point in time, like you said, there's going to be furloughs, there are going to be layoffs. So what are you actually looking for? You want to ask yourself that question. Are you returning from a gap in employment? You want to set your realistic goals and plans. So again, meaning that with all the making time, like we talked about earlier in the research part of this, making time, setting realistic goals and plans. So instead of saying you're going to research 20 companies in a day, that's your goal for the day, right? But really, in realistic terms, most likely, unless you do not have any distractions, you can research probably 2 to 5 positions a day and research them well. So set goals for yourself that are attainable, not that are completely a stretch. And also too, when you try to research that much in one sitting, you miss things. So you want to make sure that they're attainable. Research job titles and job descriptions. This is another thing that's very important, and we've talked to employers. Research the job title, look at every single bullet in the job description, and then if it is a job that you want to apply for, you need to make sure that you follow directions. There is nothing worse than when an employer gets an application and the person hasn't followed the directions. That is a sure sign that you most likely won't even get an interview, let alone get hired. Identify your must-haves. So we all have things that are negotiable and non-negotiable, right? We all want certain things. Do we want to work remotely? Does it matter how many days off per year? Does it matter if the company has benefits that you would benefit from because you need them, or maybe you don't need them? So think about what you must have, what your must-haves, or what your extras would be. And then basically, again, the job search websites. So different job search websites, and I'm just going to go over them really briefly. I've already told you about some of them, but Indeed.com, that's definitely something you want to be on. LinkedIn, professional job seeker, and great site to get all the company information that you need. Obviously, the company website directly. Glassdoor, which I spoke about earlier, which is where you can get the reviews from current and past employees and also find out about salary trends. And then there's also the Jobs Ohio website, which is focused solely on Ohio's workforce. And there actually is a website that Nancy will share with you at the end that pertains to the pandemic that we're in right now and jobs that are hiring. And those are all on that website. So we'll share that with you at the end.
Okay, so now we're at the point where we're ready to start applying, and just some tips for the application process. So I have on there towards the bottom, beware of ATS. And does everybody know what ATS is? Have you ever heard of that or come up against that when you've been applying for a job? So ATS is the applicant tracking system. It is a type of software that is used to manage candidates applying for a job. And it works, there's different types, but it works fairly simply. It sorts through the resumes and checks the resumes against the job description, looking to see where there are matches. And this software effectively does the screening and will only present people who have passed through or who have made a match to what the job description says. So the first tip for applying for a job is always to start with the job description. Make sure that you get a copy of that, print it out. Go by the qualifications and the responsibilities word for word and make some notes on that. Think of where do you match that position, because whether you're applying through applicant tracking systems or even with just on a website or with a person, how closely you match the job description is really going to determine whether or not you get an interview. So that's really going to cause you to have to sometimes tailor your resume to different job descriptions. So, you know, once you have that good resume together, it is really easy to make some adjustments and maybe put some words in there. When we say formatting your resume and cover letter, there's a couple things you really want to be careful to do. Number one, font, size, color, all of those things do matter. You want to make sure that your resume is readable and it's in a font that is best suited for resumes. So it's often recommended that you use Arial or Times New Roman. Those seem to do the best with the applicant tracking systems and are really the preferred ones with a resume. So if you see words in a job description that are repeated over and over again, you want to make sure that those words find their way onto your resume. The same thing with the cover letter. Make sure it's specific to the position that you're applying for. One thing that's very important is that you want to format both your resume and a cover letter into a PDF before you send it off to anyone. That makes sure that the formatting that you have set up will hold and it won't do all kinds of crazy things when people open it up. So then the last, one of the last things that I would say about applying is you want to find the closest source. As Maya listed out there, those job websites that Indeed and Glassdoor, Those are excellent ways to find out about positions, but I would never recommend applying for a job on them because you face too much competition. Everybody can see those positions, and it's really easy to apply for them. You just hit a button. So no skin in the game, no harm done. And everyone I know that's posted on Indeed says the same thing. I've got hundreds of resumes. I can't sort through them. So um, even though I would say use those as part of your research, use those to find where the jobs are. I don't know anyone, and I'm sure people have, and I just don't know them, but I don't know anyone who's gotten a job applying on Indeed, Monster, any of those big job sites. So what you want to do is use that to find where the openings are and try to find a closer source. So let's say you see that Highland Software is hiring for a job on Indeed. The first thing that I usually do is go to Highland Software's website. Are they really hiring for a job? Because Indeed, it takes a little while for those to catch up. So go to the company's website, see if that position is there. The other thing that you can do is go to LinkedIn. Look them up on LinkedIn. Look and see, is that job posted on LinkedIn? But better yet, see, do I know anybody at that company that I could maybe contact? Do I have a friend or a family member that knows somebody at Highland that I could say, hey, I heard that Highland was hiring a such and such. Can you tell me if you have any information or you can find that out? So keep trying to find your way as close to the source as you can and apply directly to that person. Like I said, applying on the company website is better than applying on Indeed. It's not as good as applying to the hiring manager, but you want to get as close to that as you can. The other important thing is to be sure to follow up with any applications that you put in. Now, if you apply on Indeed or some of the bigger websites, that's difficult to do. If you apply on the company website, that's also difficult to do. So that's where getting close to the hiring source helps you. But try to find a way so that you can keep with the status of the position. One thing I'll say about the Career Center is Maya and I, even in this pandemic, there's barely a day that goes by where an employer doesn't approach us with opportunities they have. And we, our biggest challenge is we can never find enough people to refer to them. So leverage sources like that, like the Career Center. Feel free to reach out to us and ask us about our job postings. They're on our website right now. And I always tell the folks that I talk to that I'm happy to follow up for you. So if you apply to something that's on our College Central Network site or on our website, those are usually people that have connected with us, and I know who the hiring manager is, and I would follow up on your behalf. So you want to seek out somebody that could help you in that way. And then before we move on to the next slide, there was a question in the comment that Times New Roman makes your resume look dated and that other fonts like Arial are better. I mean, I would agree with that. I don't like Times New Roman. The applicant tracking systems tend to like it. So for that reason, I think it's very accepted. It's also an accepted font, you know, in resume writing, but I agree with you. I think it looks dated. I prefer to go with Arial myself. The one thing you don't want to do is start using some of these crazy fonts that nobody has ever heard of because it is distracting to the reader. It often will not make it through the applicant tracking systems. And it will really not help you in your cause, which is to get that interview and to get that job. So that is what we have on applying, and I know we're getting closer to the end, so we can move on to the most important part, the interviewing.
Okay, so I have a question for all of you. I want to know what types of interviews have you had? Are they face-to-face interviews, which are pretty much traditional? If you want to just type in the chat box, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to do this very quickly, but what types of interviews have you had? Face-to-face, virtual, group, informal? Okay, so we have phone, face-to-face, both one-on-one and panel style. Fantastic. Okay. So also phone, yes. And phone obviously right now is what you may be having as well. Face-to-face and Zoom, perfect. So There's several different types of interviews. Obviously, when you have a pandemic and people are told to stay at home, you're going to have a lot more of the virtual interviews. Um, and so you want to make sure you're prepared for any type of interview, but you also want to make sure that once you are granted an interview, you found out what type of style it is. So sometimes employers will start with the phone interview. It's an initial phone screen, that's what they call it, just to see whether or not they want to, that what you're giving them, the information that you're giving them, the qualifications that you have, the soft skills, any type of communication. They're looking to see if they should move you on to the next interview step, next step in the interview process. Sometimes you have the face-to-face interview. That's the most traditional. The one-on-one, shake the hand, look them straight in the eye, have the one-on-one conversation. Panel interviews are very, very common. When I came to work at Tri-C, I had a panel interview, and wow, you don't realize when you're sitting in a room of 6 to 8 people and the spotlight's just on you and everybody's firing questions at you, you want to be prepared for that. And you don't want to walk in not realizing that you're going to walk into a conference room or a boardroom with 6 to 8 people, or potentially, like somebody says on the chat here, 10 plus people. That's a lot. So know the types of interview you're going to have. One of the tips, though, if you are going to participate in a virtual interview, like a Skype, Zoom, WebEx, or any other type of online platform, make sure you are always in a quiet space. Make sure that there are no distractions. It's very hard working from home. We all have our challenges. We all have animals, we have children, we have who knows what. Any type of distraction can happen at any time. And although that's not the end of the world, you want to try to still remain as professional as possible, just like you would have on a face-to-face interview. So make sure all of your phones are turned off. Leave the phone in another room if you want, so you don't hear any of those distractions. The panel of one person or multiple, obviously with any interview, you want to show your worth to that company. Why do they want to hire you? Also, to make sure if you are in a panel, you address each person. You look at each person. You, at the end of the interview, you shake hands with every person, and in the beginning, when you walk in, shake hands with everybody. Preparation. My biggest thing with preparation is prepare, prepare, prepare. You can never be too prepared. You don't want to be underprepared. You want to be over prepared. You want to be prepared. So make sure you bring a copy of your resume to every interview. The interviewer may have forgotten to print it out. They may have had a glitch. They might just not have it. So it's always best for you to make sure you bring a copy every time so that you can hand that resume to the employer. Again, make sure you dress professionally, give eye contact, firm handshake. One of the recommendations is it's not in your best interest to wear perfume or cologne because some people are actually allergic to that. And also too, some people may find it overpowering and it may distract from the interview that you're having. Let's see here, does where you sit at the interview matter? Typically, what would happen is when you are invited into, whether it's a conference room, whether it is somebody's office, whether it's at Panera Bread, the person typically stands up and you shake their hand, and most often there's a seat waiting for you. So if I was the person interviewing you, you would probably sit on the other side of my desk. That's just how it would be. If we were sitting at a table, I would stand up and there'd be an empty chair for you. In a panel, same thing. All the panelists or the group are going to be in that conference room or that boardroom. So there will be an empty seat for you. Oh, I love this one. I knew this was going to come up. In the light of COVID, handshaking is likely a thing of the past. I know. That's a really good question. And I say that because I'm not really sure, to be honest. That's something we haven't really talked about. I don't know, Nancy, do you have any insight on that? Not shaking hands. I mean, they say now to do the elbow, but I don't think that's professional for an interview.
I think the good thing is we won't have to worry about it for a little bit, because I really don't know of any interviews that are taking place in person anymore. Right now, they all seem to be virtual, but you know, whether it's meeting with a family member for the first time or a friend or an interview, it's that awkwardness where you sort of like just startle when you see each other and you don't, you know, this is the person you normally shake their hand or hug them and you don't know what to do. The one thing I would just suggest is just to acknowledge it by saying, so awful that we can't shake hands anymore, but it's really a pleasure to meet you. The last thing you want to do is stick your hand out there and then have someone like not want to shake it. Then there's like no coming back from that awkwardness. So I think if you're faced with this situation, I would just acknowledge it and say it's just such a shame that, you know, the formalities of shaking hands are not here anymore, but I just want to say it's such a pleasure to welcome or to meet you and thank you for having me, or just, you know, get it out of the way right away so there's not that awkward situation.
And I agree. And that's also that's also communicating, and that's also showing that you're a real person. You have to remember, anybody that you're interviewing with, they're all people. Just we're all people, right? We all are people. You have to realize that. So I know a lot of people go into interviews extremely nervous, but you just have to remember everybody's a person. We've all been on the other side of the desk before. Um, we're all people. So by addressing something like the shaking hands, like Nancy said, oh, I'm so sorry. It's a pleasure to meet you. Isn't it crazy how that's showing you're a real person. So, and that's what you want to do. You want to exude. You're not a robot. You are a real person. So show the genuine side of yourself too. Um, Make sure to have proper posture, speak clearly, try not to speak too fast. That's something that sometimes I have to slow myself down on. Um, Pair experiences from your past job experience or anything that you may have that will relate to the job that you're applying for and the job, or excuse me, the job that you're interviewing for. So strategic, forward thinking, think of all of those types of things. So as far as like, why do you want the job? You want to also go into the job interview with a clear cut reason why. Not just, well, you know what, I got laid off and now I have to find a job and I'm just applying for anything. You really want to go in with about 3 to 5 key selling points of why you want the job. Hence the reason why, again, going back to the research and the job preparation, you don't want to just be applying to any company because you need a job. You want to figure out why you want to be there. Something that you want to also think about is longevity. Do you want to stick around with this company that you're working with? And if you do, then it is something that's one of the things that you want to sell yourself on. Knowing your audience. I know before you go into an interview, you typically know, are you meeting with the HR manager? Are you meeting with the hiring manager? Are you meeting with a recruiter? Or who are you meeting with? It's best to know your audience of who you are meeting. And even in a panel, most times you can get that information ahead of time. Asking questions. Why is this position open? If you could design like the ideal candidate, right? If we could actually like make up a person, what type of person would you want to hire for this position? What type, what is your favorite thing about working here? Think of, again, meaningful, thoughtful questions that you can ask an employer during an interview. You never, ever, ever want to walk away with not asking at least one question, because if you don't ask questions, it just doesn't sound like you're very interested. So as far as like the follow-up portion, follow-up is very, very important. I know Nancy touched on this, but I'm going to touch on it after the interview because she touched on it in a different regard. But after the interview, follow-up is so important. And again, because we deal with employers on a daily basis, we see this, we hear this, we're told different things. So that's how we know all of this information. If you do, a follow-up can be a simple thank you, an email. Sure, you can send it the traditional way with a handwritten note. That's always nice, but sometimes you don't have the luxury of the time of doing the handwritten note, because by the time you write the handwritten note, get to the post office, mail it, it could be 4 days later, and an email is simple. You can send the email off and they will have some type of thank you from you. Employers have told us before that they have not hired individuals because, or if they were going to hire an individual, 2 people had really great skill sets and it was very hard for them to make the decision. And the decision came down to one person sent the thank you, the other didn't. So it's very, very, very important to follow up. Now let's see here. What does it say?
I might just rush. We can just go quickly through the last slide, and then I know we got a bunch of questions in the chat. We can kind of get to those. So just the last thing we wanted to talk about was job searching in a pandemic. We hear really horrifying unemployment numbers every week, and it makes you feel this sense of anxiety and doom. But You can find a job in the pandemic. There are actually a lot of people hiring right now. So just a few things, tips for navigating this difficult situation. The most important one to me is upgrade your technical skills and equipment. If you're in the market to buy a computer, now is the time to do it. Um, you will find that part or all of your job search and position will be taking place remotely, and you need to have the tools to be able to accept those positions. So, do you have an updated computer that you can use to get on all these different types of platforms? Can your computer do a job for you, not just use it for, the things you might have used it for in the past? Your Wi-Fi network, how is that? Is it time to upgrade that? Make sure before you start a job search that you have everything together in your home. Do you have a home office space? Do you have somewhere quiet where your dog is not barking and people aren't banging pots and pans? Make sure that you are in a position to work and interview remotely, because for the short term, that's how it's going to be. And there's a lot of people saying that's not just for the short term. I heard something yesterday that said all the pandemic has done is accelerate things that were already happening. We were moving towards automation, towards flexibility, agility, working from home. So this may be how things are going to continue. Make sure that technically you're up to date and it can do it. The other thing is know your essential industries. Those are the industries that are not affected as much by the pandemic. So those include some parts of healthcare, particularly public health, law enforcement, first responders, food and agriculture, logistics, IT, critical manufacturing, and financial services. And I can tell you the financial services sector is very busy, actively hiring all over the place. All of these loans that are coming out, someone needs to be processing them. So it's not to say you have to have a job in one of those, but look for a business that is in one of the essential industries, because chances are they're hiring and you'll be insulated for whatever might come from this virus as we progress through the fall. The last thing is, if you are an entrepreneur, now is the time to embrace it. A lot of businesses have popped up, whether they are making masks or cleaning services or putting things in people's yards to celebrate occasions that we can't celebrate in the way that we normally do. Delivery services. As people come back to work, employers need to figure out how to make sure they're safe to work. Can you think of some way to provide that service? So now is a great time for an entrepreneur to come up with some type of business that works with what's going on in the world today. And then the final thing, the final slide then, is hopefully most of you are aware, the state of Ohio has put together a jobs website for opportunities related to the current health crisis and the people that are hiring right now. So this is a great way to start your research. Start here. Look at all the companies are hiring, and go through all those other steps that we talked about. But this is a perfect way to start your research, and the state of Ohio has done a lot to put together a very nice website where you can find who's looking for workers right now. So I don't know, Maya, if you want to take a couple of those questions, or
How are we on time, Geraldine? Do we have time, or should we be responding to these?
Oh, yeah, we have time for at least one or maybe two questions. Please go ahead.
Companies really
I'll
with
I can jump in, Maya, with the one I'll tell you about the STARS behavioral method of interviewing, because I think that is really important to know that when you're going to be interviewed, you will most likely follow that format. So if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. And so when people interview now, the thinking is that your past history is the best indicator of how you'll perform in the future. So they design questions to kind of bring out how you behaved in a situation in the past, so they can predict how you'll be in their work site. And if you're not familiar with it, it is tough. And if you go into an interview and you are not prepared to answer questions that way, it will be the longest interview of your life, because you get flustered and then it all unravels from there. And so what I advise people to do is just when you're preparing, start answering every question that way. If you get your mind thinking that way, it becomes very easy to answer those questions. So you want to think about what was the situation, what was the task at hand, what were my actions, and what were the result of my actions. So before you go to an interview, make sure that you brush up on the STARS method of interviewing and are comfortable answering questions that way.
And a couple things that I'll respond to on here. It says, when you follow up with an email after your interview and do not receive a response, should you try again or consider it disinterest? No, I wouldn't say try again. I wouldn't say disinterest at all. If you have to remember, these are hiring managers, or if you're dealing with HR or even recruiters, these individuals are extremely, extremely busy. So they're reading your email, they are receiving it, and they're probably putting it, a flag on it, or they're storing it in a folder somewhere. So they know that they know that you've followed up with them. But the one thing you don't want to do is be too pushy, because that can also then make the job where they're no longer going to be available for you. And I've actually seen that, unfortunately, too, where somebody's actually talked themselves out of a job because they were too just on top of the employer all the time, asking questions, and not getting responses, and continuing to pester them. So I would say they received it, and you would just go from there. Do companies really follow up with your references? Yes, absolutely, they do. Absolutely. I mean, there might be some that don't, but I would say the larger percentages of companies do follow up with your references. And sometimes you're asked to give a personal reference, and then business references. So I know somebody's asking here, how do I use personal referrals in conjunction with actually applying for a job? That's a 2 or 3 part question. But as far as using personal referrals, if there's a place that you can put a personal referral, absolutely. And how you go about asking the person for that personal referral is, and any referrals, to be honest with you, is you want to always make sure that you ask the person that you plan to put down with their phone number, are they okay? And will they be willing to give you a referral? Because what also happens is you never want a recruiter to contact a reference that you give them, and either they don't remember you, or maybe it really isn't going to be a good referral, or they're caught off guard and then they don't know what to say. So I just had recently, I just had somebody ask me for a reference just for a babysitting job, and I said absolutely, but I'm glad that she did, because if the parent had contacted me, I would have had no idea who this person was. I probably wouldn't have answered my phone because I didn't know that somebody with this number that I didn't know was calling me. So always ask your references if it is okay to utilize them as a reference, and let them know that you are searching out positions and you may be contacted.
That is perfect, Maya, and thank you so much to both of you. I hate to really kind of cut this off right now, but we are over time just by a couple minutes, and I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. I think we could probably talk for another hour, ladies. This is such an important topic, so hopefully we can maybe have you back on again in the future. I just, on behalf of Corporate College and myself, I really want to thank you both, Maya and Nancy, for your time today. And I really want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope you remember Corporate College is here to serve you, just like Maya and Nancy in the Career Center, to overcome these challenges. And to tell you just a little bit more about the Career Center's mission, it's really designed to provide high quality career development, not just to our students and alumni, but also the community. It truly is a learner-centered environment. They provide virtual career exploration, assessment tools such as virtual job shadow, career spots, and my plan. And in addition, they offer a wide range of virtual career-related services and online programming, including workshops, individual coaching appointments, resume critiques, mock interviews, and personalized assistance with your job search. All valuable services, and all free to students, alumni, and the community. Very important. So please visit career services at tri-c.edu or call the Career Center toll free at 866-933-5433. 5180. I'm also posting it in the chat for you. So if you want to copy and paste that, and we'll also have that included in the presentation that goes out to everybody. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Please visit Corporate College's website for our virtual training classroom programs and for our webinar series. You can rewatch this session, share it with your friends or colleagues, as well as other ones. It'll be posted in the next few days by clicking on the free webinar series link on our website. And please continue to stay up to date with everything that Tri-C has to offer by following us on social media. And you can also follow Corporate College's sites as well, both on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So with that, I want to thank all of you again today for joining us. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. And please, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone, and a happy holiday.
Yeah, enjoy the weekend. The sun will come out eventually.
Right. Exactly. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.